Hello everyone, Patrice Juanano again here. Now our topic today is grammar. I'm going to explain clauses and phrases. Let's dive to my PowerPoint slides. So here comes our topic, clauses and phrases. Let's look at how they are formed. Okay. Yeah, clauses and phrases. Now, first of all, can you identify the clauses in these sentences? Have a go and try to identify the clauses among these um, forms or this combination of words. Okay, now let's check whether you have got them correct or not. Yeah. Well, if not, it's okay because I'm going to explain what are the clauses and phrases. So the definition of a clause is a string of words which has a subject and verb. Notice the word and here. It means that both of the elements must be present in a string of words. It must have a subject and a verb. Yeah, subject and verb. You cannot have either one. You will have to have subject and verb. That's clause. Yeah. So again, it's a string of words which has a subject and verb, which means that if there is a string of words, you can identify where is the subject and where is the verb. Yeah. And the verb has to be finite. Now, finite means that the form of the verb depends on the tense. So, for example, the price falls. Here, falls is a finite verb. Why? Because if I change it into past simple, then it also changes into fell. Yeah. So this is finite verb. The form of a finite verb changes with the change in tenses. If I change it into present progressive, then it becomes falling and followed by or preceded by is. Yeah, so again, this is a finite verb because it changes according to the tense. The tense changes, it also changes. That's finite verb. Now, phrase is a string of words which has either a subject or a verbal part. Verbal part means a part which contains a verb. So it has either a subject or a verbal part. Yeah, so for example, head of the department has only noun, right? There is no verbal part here. It's only a subject. It can be a subject. Living on a jet plane. Again, this is only verbal part. There is no subject here. Okay, so if you cannot identify the subject and verb in a string of words, then it is likely to be, most likely it is a phrase. Okay, now coming back to my previous exercise, these are the answers. So you have the bold faced here are the clauses. Yeah, any sings, any is the subject, sings is the verb. Okay, we do that. We is the subject, do is the verb. Love hurts. Love is the subject, hurts is verb. Time heals. Time is the subject, heals is verb. Okay, easy, right? So if you can identify the subject and the verb, then it is a clause. Other than that, like this other combination of words, they are phrases. Okay, yeah. Now, spend some time to work this out. Which of these are clauses? Yeah. Help me, happiness comes and goes. The pleasure of studying satisfies me. The Queen's Gambit. When I was a small boy. Online classes. Online classes are not forever. when you were a student sailing to the edge of a broken rainbow. Which of these are clauses? Okay. Now a little about the two types of clause. We have dependent and independent clause. Dependent clause, or we call it subordinate clause, is a clause which cannot stand alone. It cannot stand alone. It means you cannot just write a dependent clause and that's finished. Yeah, it's hanging unfinished. It cannot stand alone. It must be attached to another clause, and that other clause is called independent clause or main clause. Yeah, so a dependent clause is subordinate clause, and uh, it cannot stand alone. It must be attached to another clause, which is called independent clause or main clause. Okay. In bahasa Indonesia, we have this uh, induk kalimat, main clause, and anak kalimat, subordinate or dependent clause. Yeah. For example, when Anne was a small girl, now the italicized sentences are the clauses, independent clauses, sorry, dependent clauses. Yeah. Again, the italicized sentences or the italicized part is the dependent clause because it has to be attached to an independent clause. Like for example here, when Anne was a small girl, comma, she had a best friend named Sheila. See, this is the dependent clause because it cannot stand alone. You cannot just say when Anne was a small girl, period. No, that's awkward. That doesn't make sense. Yeah, that's hanging. That's not finished. Yeah, so you have to say when Anne was a small girl, comma, she had a best friend named Sheila. Now this is the dependent clause and this is the independent clause. Yeah, and notice that they are separated by a comma here. Don't forget to put a comma after the dependent clause. Because they really looked alike, people thought that they were sisters. Again, this is the dependent clause because they really looked alike. Yeah. Then you have comma to separate it from the independent clause. Yeah. If they didn't tell them that they were not siblings, those people would not have known it. Again, this is the dependent clause. It must be attached to the independent clause or to the main clause here. Okay? Yeah. You can also notice the other characteristic of a dependent clause is that it is preceded or it is started with a conjunction when, because, if. Yeah. So now you have several characteristics of a dependent clause. One is that it cannot stand alone. It must be attached to a independent clause, and then it is preceded with a conjunction when, because, or we call it subordinators. Yeah. When, because, if. Yeah. Okay. Now, let me present you with a short essay with clauses and phrases. Those printed in italics are the phrases. Online meetings, online classes. I don't know which one is which. Now, the bold-faced part is the clauses. Everything looks similar to each other. Poor boss. This is the phrase. Yeah. My secretary sighed. This is the clause. Yeah. My secretary is subject. Sighed is verb. Finite verb. You have no idea that the world is no longer physical. Virtual reality, boss. Yes, this is the phrase again. And this is the clause. Subject, verb. Subject, verb. Yes, verb B is also considered as a finite verb. Okay. Yes. So that's it. I guess that will help you understand clauses and phrases. Good luck and goodbye.